What is happening, you guys? It's your boy LDAWB coming at you with a new video, and possibly, or realistically, this is probably the last part of my Capcom Legacy influencer spotlight series, and it's been a long time coming. If you haven't checked it out, check out my other videos on the other Capcom artists that have done Edion, Bengus, Akiman, and LDAWB, which all are amazing. So but today I'm going to probably really go down the rabbit hole with this one, because this particular artist is next to Edion, is probably my biggest influence in Capcom, and I want to really be very just, typically I have images being shown in front of me, and I'm just kind of looking at them and remembering what I felt when I looked at them, but I just want to go by pure memory this time. And I feel like that's probably best, to kind of reflect on just how Kinu has influenced me. Today, if you hadn't guessed, we're going to talk about the legendary Kinu Nishimura. Kinu Nishimura, very iconic, very acclaimed, very prolific, a master of form art and figure art, and I was very just immersed by her stuff. I had actually no idea that she was a woman, first of all, and the only reason why I say that is because she draws better than most male artists, and I was just taken back by just how she was able to create really interesting form drawings, very intriguing form drawings. So anyway, really I'm going to start with really the inception of how I got to her art, how I was introduced to her art by a little small game called Street Fighter 3, New Generation, I believe. And it was in that time period that Street Fighter 3 was announced. It was a big deal. It was trying to beat out Street Fighter 2 in terms of just showcasing what that game could be, and showing the graphics at the time, arcade specs and whatnot, and the art in there. And I mentioned this before in the Akiman video, but it was through the full character artworks that she did that I was very intrigued with. One of the things that caught my eye about it was the fact that it was very JoJo Bizarre Adventure like, and I was teetering towards that art style at the time too, and I noticed that there was an influence in her art with the way that the lines were kind of wavy and giving a vibe of flow, in particular with Ken and Ryu's and Sean's clothes, and obviously the anatomy was very much on point, but I was very intrigued and impressed by the line work. I thought the line work was superbly done in a way that was very authentic and very unapologetic. It was very loose. It had that kabuki Japanese art style to it, kind of based like Akiman's character select art pieces. And yes, in fact, Akiman did those pieces with the character selection screens. But going towards this particular art style, I had noticed that the face and the hands and the feet sometimes, and some little details of the body were drawn in a thin line aesthetic, and then the body and the clothes were drawn in a more thicker aesthetic. And just that approach was something that caught my eye, because it was just that unique, that different. And so fast forward to, I want to say, Capcom versus SNK. Both of those games, Mark of the Millennium in the first game. And I had remembered that her artwork, because she was actually taking the SNK characters, drawing them in her style, and I noticed the shift. I noticed the shift in, instead of the very simplistic coloring approach, she was going heavy onto the painting. And I remember at that time too, and I remember pictures of Kyo and her take on Terry Bogard and her take on Iori, and the style was different. The approach was different. There was more of a painted, messy style. And I had mentioned in the Daigo influence spotlight video that Daigo was a major proprietor of me painting, but so was Kinu in this situation. And as impressed as I was with her work, I wanted to emulate that style. And I remember that phase. It was around the 2000 phase, and I remember Final Fantasy X came out as well, and it was kind of like that, the dawn of the realistic Tetsuya Nomura era, and I wanted to kind of capture that realism. And I remember just that phase where I wanted to be very loose with my painting. I was just very, very focused on studying the technique. How do I get the brushes in Photoshop to match this fade and the opacity, and trial and error, and yeah, just a bunch of trial and error. And I also remember too, and this was an interesting phase in my life in particular. You know, I mentioned SNK versus Capcom. I'm sorry, Capcom versus SNK 1 and 2. 2 was more of the same thing, and just kind of defining that painting style. But I also remember a small game called Gaia Master, and I had never played it, obviously, but I do remember all the artwork illustrations she did, the cover illustrations, the character designs in that game, and still taking that approach. And that was a very impressive work, or a body of work, that I found out later that Kinu actually enjoyed doing that series. So I thought that was a very interesting time period, as well as Ken and Spike. And I do remember most of the designs on that game. And going into, I want to say, Overman King Gainer. That's another one. That's probably something you guys probably have never even heard about, was Overman King Gainer. She did the character designs there, and then I remember seeing something on the website that announced that, and I don't know if that was from Capcom at the time, but I was impressed with it. I was very impressed with that direction per se. But there was a phase. I noticed that there was a phase in her evolution that she just started doing that. But I'm kind of going forward a little bit. I do want to mention, before I keep going, that Street Fighter Second Impact was another one that gained my attention. And so I think that was when I started to see that peak of that painted aesthetic that she was doing. And I just wanted to mention that. I think that her works have been very influential in terms of coloring, in terms of drawing, in terms of design, in terms of presentation, composition, how she puts characters together, is one of my favorite things that I appreciate about her. She is a master artist, and I do want to talk about some other games that in the wormhole, in the rabbit hole of her works that I feel like they need to be seen, they need to be appreciated more. And I want to mention Cyberbots. I believe it's Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, I believe. And just talking about also with JoJo Bizarre Adventure vibe, that was clearly the case in this game. JoJo Bizarre Adventure vibes all throughout. I remember I think it was Santana, JoJo Bizarre Adventure vibes all the way through. And I feel like I should have played these games to kind of see more of her artworks. And I know that she's done artworks for many other games that I may not know of. And in the comments, if you guys can just tell me what they are, I'm all for looking at more art from her. I'm keen for it. But I wanted to mention Cyberbots, and I wanted to kind of just say, one of the other older works that she's done too is Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows of the Labyrinth, I believe. I don't know if that's the specifics, but that was a game that came out 95, 96, I believe, and I liked it. The one thing that I will say about her work is that it is consistent. She has a consistent figure drawing aesthetic that is consistent, and it's done in a way that, I mentioned in Yoshitaka Amano's work or video, I was kind of mentioning that he has paintings that are like water. Yoshitaka does full paintings, and the vibe of those paintings are like water. In the realm of character design, I have to probably venture and say the same thing about Kinu's, is that her work is like water. It's very flowy, it's very formulaic, and that's all encapsulated in her work. And I've studied her work probably more than all of the other Capcom artists that I've mentioned. Close to Edion, but not as much as Kinu, as much as I paid attention to what she was doing, what she was drawing. I know that she's done some works for Fire Emblem Heroes. I don't want to just not mention that at all. I think personally my favorite art arc of her kind of evolution is clearly Capcom versus SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium 2001. And the cover art that she's done with Shinkiro and some of the SNK artists and Capcom artists, and but that's probably my favorite era of her work, because it kind of embodies those elements, like I said before, with the painting, the artworks, the pencils, the colorings. She embodies a lot of figure drawing that is again just unapologetic. And obviously, like to this day, I still appreciate her work. Her and Tetsuya Nomura are pretty much the Bible of how to draw certain things in my book. And amongst all the other artists that I've mentioned before, but Kinu has been essentially important in my growth. And for the longest time, I've appreciated her work, and I've followed her work in an age where there was no social media, right? But one of the things that I would wish would happen is somewhat of an interview with her. I want to actually listen to her talk about her process. I think more than anything, because she has that mystique, she has that mystery that, you know, obviously her work speak for herself. But I want to get to know what was going on in her brain when she was making these pieces of artwork. And I want to know, you know, I see interviews here and there, but it's not the same. I almost want to like see how she's feeling when she mentions what her favorite designs are, what was going through her head when she was doing this particular series. Was this difficult? All of these things that, you know, now we've been blessed with YouTube, we've been blessed with videos and interviews and introspective looks. But that's something that I would love from her. Obviously, she's still drawing to this day, and I'm not keeping up like I did before with her work. But that's one of the things that I wish there were plenty of, was more of just her talking. You know, the whole mysteriousness of Kinu has kind of embodied her to be this god-tiered artist, and respectfully so, she is a god-tier artist in my opinion. But also, I just want to get to know the person more than anything. So, Kinu, you probably will never see this, and you're probably too busy to even, you know, care, or, you know, not even aware of the fact that here's this artist here in New Zealand that's still a fan. And I just want you to know that I appreciate you. You have been essential to my own personal art growth, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for creating works and slaving away and working extremely hard and outdoing yourself, because I do notice those things. And yeah, I hope that your work continually is remembered, and also for the other Capcom artists as well. Highly influential, your work has to be recognized more than just our circle, our character design circle. So anyway, this is more of a longer format, and I apologize for the length, but I wanted this to be very sincere and very from the heart this time. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you for just taking the time to listen to me talk about my experiences. I will have more artist influence videos coming soon. And yeah, thank you again. Thank you to my Patreons. I appreciate you guys. Much love, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.